So what council decided tonight is to move forward. So we made it through another gate on the Olympic process. However, this gate is contingent on confirmation of the federal and provincial funding. So the bid itself will cost about $30 million, roughly one-third from each party. The city has already put in $6 million, and we had held back $1 million for the discussion about the federal and provincial government, and we would still, to get to our one-third, have to put in another $2.5. So what council agreed on today is that if the federal and provincial governments confirm their funding, then council will also release an additional $3.5 million to take us up to $9.5 million.
So, but that one recommendation, though, releasing the $1 million, does that bring us up to 7 now?
Yes, but all of it is contingent on the province and the feds coming in.
You said you learned over the lunch hour today about some information. I saw you leave the building with the lieutenant governor.
No, absolutely nothing to do with one another. Good eye, though, intrepid boy reporter. No, they have nothing to do with one another. Why? But I remain confident that we're in good shape for the federal and provincial money, and I would expect a decision soonish.
Well, you said you were extraordinarily competent.
Sure.
That funding was soon forthcoming. Why? Why are you?
Well, we've had lots of conversations, as you can imagine, with the feds and the province on this. And I know that there has been a lot of crossing of T's and dotting of I's on what the agreement would look like. But I think that with council's decision to move forward today with that kind of commitment, I think that probably will get rid of any remaining barriers with the other governments. But of course, it's their decision.
Right. And do you have any sense of when that definitive answer is going to be said out loud?
Oh, here's my favorite word. You don't come to Scrum that often. Soonish. I imagine that the other governments have the information they need to make a final decision now.
Were you expecting such a close decision, 8-6?
Yes.
Why?
Oh, well, remember that only one person has changed their vote since the last time we did this, and one person was missing today. So, yeah, that's precisely what I was expecting.
There seems to be a lot of almost split decisions on council, people going, all right, well, I'm looking to see if we'll go ahead and see how this progresses, but I reserve the right to say no in August. I mean, and do you think a lot of Calgary is in the same position, wondering what's going on?
Well, I think we all are, right? And to presuppose the conversation tomorrow around should we have a plebiscite or not, I think what I've heard from Calgarians throughout is give us more information. You know, if this thing is going to cost me $5 billion as a city taxpayer, I don't want it. If I'm going to be able to leverage some really interesting funding from the provincial and federal governments in order to build those legacy facilities and have some economic rebuild those legacy facilities and have some economic impact, sure, let's go for it. But we just don't have those answers yet. So I think what you heard from council and what I would have said exactly the same thing. There's enough here to put a little risk in the game to keep going, but if the numbers don't work, we stop.
Are you concerned that CBEC didn't account for inflation in their numbers that they brought to council?
It's not quite right. So just to get very detailed about it, CBEC looked at costs, but also revenues, all in 2017 numbers. So in other words, what we might be asking the federal government for, the provincial government for, they also did it in 2017 numbers. That is actually a correct methodology. Do everything together. And so what you heard today is the costs will be higher because of inflation, but that also means the asks will be higher.
But to the public who, they're not as deep sometimes and they could see this as a red flag. Does that make this a harder sell?
No, I don't think so. And this is me, the former finance professor. You should always account for your costs and revenues in the same year. You can just pick a year. And that was the year CBEC picked, which makes sense.
Talking about the off-ramps, the mini off-ramps we heard tonight, if you guys decide to take one of those off-ramps at a later date, did we throw $6 to $7 million down the drain?
Not at all. I'm not going to say none of it was throwaway money. Some could argue that the money doing the fact-finding in Pyeongchang, we might not have had to spend all of that. But the vast majority of the money we've spent so far has been on understanding what our venues are, understanding what the city's ability to host major international events is, where we have gaps, what we need to work on. And so all of that puts us in really good stead, maybe for a future Olympic bid, maybe, but also for bids for other major sporting events. I've shared with many people one of my dreams, which is to shine a light on a lot of these less appreciated sports that you only hear about in the year of the Winter Olympics, and do a major winter sports festival in Calgary where we have world championships for things like luge and bobsled all at the same time. So there's lots, and that's just my crazy idea, but there's lots of other opportunities for us to bid on stuff using these facilities.
And in terms of tomorrow, do you expect much of the same results in terms of this plebiscite vote?
No, I think it'll be a little bit different. That said, I think that it is very important for us to hear the public engagement plan, which is coming back to Committee of Council on April 10th. So I would very much be in favor of having the conversation about the plebiscite at the same time we have the conversation about the other public engagement tools.